one thing from the practitioner level that there's an opportunity to develop further is better analytics. And because youth development is so holistic, it encompasses employment and all these other issues, social issues that we've been talking about. But very rarely do I see organizations, including the one I'm just coming out of, using really rigorous analytic tools. And they tend to silo their analytics in the same way. So I think there's a need for us as a body to start to develop common analytic frameworks and design and monitoring and evaluation frameworks that we in the youth space can be using and sort of within our own lexicon that we use on a daily basis.
Every global phone carrier gets data. We don't know how to tap into that. We're not using it well, and I think that's a real opportunity that we should be thinking about more in our practice.
There is an inherent problem with collecting data when it is driven by donors, because what we find in the education sector is a lot of government information is falsified. There's a body of data that is actually not particularly helpful because it's actually fictitious.
And the other thing is that within the youth space, you see a lot of the foundations getting on board with evidence-based, like MasterCard Foundation's been investing in doing monitoring and evaluation for youth financial services, for example. So you are seeing sort of a smaller momentum that's requiring more evidence-based and sort of looking at that. So again, sort of looking at those opportunities and how we can build out from that or use those as examples.
How can we fill this data gap when the data that academic scholars find, it's rich in qualitative, but not necessarily in the quantitative, evaluative side that a donor wants to see in numbers? And how can we reach some sort of cohesion on that? I think another big topic that we talked about was how are we trying to, are we almost narrowing our sights in trying to find things that we can latch onto to solve? That is sort of putting band-aids of programs over larger structural policy issues, and where can where are the access points for donors when it's not necessarily hitting a core issue, but may help a few young people? And also, where can academics be helpful in facilitating that larger context to donors and moving information upward from the programmatic to hit the policymakers?
So that's kind of exactly the point, that in programming we tend to have what we're doing and then there's M&E over here. Instead of saying that should be an integral part of our program.
Here are a couple thoughts. I don't know if they're going to be relevant here, but one thing from a programming standpoint, apart from that obvious connection that needs to be there, is how to build in thinking about evidence at a youth level and at a local implementer level. Because we think about it, and often that stuff is imposed and it's a chore and people don't really like to do it, they don't have time to do it, they don't understand why it is. But if it's a whole orientation toward the programming that we do, and if youth are empowered to think about it for themselves. So for example, one element of a lot of the programming that we do at EDC that we're trying to introduce is this notion of self-evaluation and introducing that it's progress, that you're monitoring progress. It's not about good or bad, because that's where everybody goes right away. Oh, I don't want to take that test because I might fail. No, it's not about failure. It's about we're all evolving all the time. So building in this notion of progressive development, progressive change, and empowering people at different levels to do that monitoring themselves.
Yeah, somebody yesterday in our group had mentioned that M&E is more about learning and not necessarily about data collection per se, and I think it sort of builds on what you're saying.
But it can also be about youth empowerment and participation.
Yes, absolutely.